Hey everyone, in this video I want to give you my final thoughts on the new Sony A7R5. Now you might have seen my... Alright, start again. Now you might have seen my other video where I gave my first impressions on the camera. So in this one I want to do a quick summary on what I like, what I don't like, and what camera I think you should get for your own photography. So I've had the camera now for over a month, and during this time, pretty much taken it out in almost every condition possible. Been out in a rainstorm, captured the southern lights, been up in a plane, been up in a helicopter, you name it, pretty much done it. So I feel like I've been able to really give it a good run through so I can give some honest feedback on the camera. So let's just get straight to the point now. Definitely, in my opinion, this is Sony's best model to date when it comes to what I like to do, landscape photography. But you'd expect that, right? This is their latest model. They've had many years to develop this on top of the previous model. Now, if you've seen the previous video, the first impressions, I mainly focused on the improved IBIS, the stabilization, as well as the ISO performance. Since shooting with the camera for the month, I got to say that those two features are still the main thing that are jumping out to me as being the biggest improvement on the last model, as well as the inbuilt focus stacking feature that we have. They've also improved the menu, which is nice because the old menu was just terrible to navigate. I've got to admit though, the new one is not much better. But those things are the main adjustments. So when I think of this camera, I don't think of this as a groundbreaking move forward in the camera technology. I think of it more as a refining. They've just really refined what they've done in previous models. But that's kind of the stage we're at the moment when it comes to still photography. The technology has just been pushed so high that any changes, they're not huge. They're just minor little refinements that essentially just make the existing technology a little bit better. All right, let's just cut straight to the point, the pros and cons. Now, obviously, everything that I say here, this is applying to me and the photography that I do and the images that I make. The first thing that I really like about the camera is that improved stability, that IBIS. It's allowing me, someone that doesn't use a tripod, to be able to get over 1 second handheld tack sharp without even having to think about it. Definitely couldn't do that on the previous models. ISO performance, far better than the Mark IV. Obviously the Mark IV had similar megapixels, 60 megapixel. With that comes not the best ISO performance, but in this one they've maintained the resolution, but dramatically cleaned up the noise there. So shooting the night sky recently, definitely impressed with the results. So there's no hesitation in using this for astro images and boosting the ISO. Another little thing that I like that they've finally added is the ability to set the duration in the bulb mode. Now I only use this when I'm doing astro shots, but it's really handy to be able to do a 2, 3, 4 minute exposure when you're shooting all your foreground matter and not have to get out the remote. So it's nice now to go into the menu, lock in your exposure time, and then just sit back and let it go. I think that's a really nice little feature they've added there. The other really handy feature is obviously that focus stacking feature, being able to just fire away and let it run through all those focus points, especially being handheld like I am. Man, that is really handy and a great addition to the camera. The weather sealing, definitely no complaints. Took it out in a pretty decent storm recently and the camera's held up fine. I definitely put these cameras through its paces out in these rainstorms that we get here, and yeah, this one held up more than fine. The last point that I want to mention is finally a decent touchscreen. Mainly what I like this for is now being able to pinch and zoom and check focus after shooting. So in the past, you'd have to push the magnifying glass button. There'll be a delay, it would zoom in too far. It's just a real slow process now. You can shoot, quickly zoom, and then carry on. It's just nice that they've finally updated that into the software. All right, the cons. It can't all be positive, right? There's got to be a few cons. Look, honestly, there's not too many. The first thing I'm going to mention is the price point. Everything's gone up in the world at the moment, but I feel like the price on this has just gone up that extra level again. It's a pretty hefty price tag, so if you're going to purchase it, you definitely want to get it when it's on sale. That's exactly what I did. And the other con that I'm going to mention is, although the upgrades are great, I feel like the upgrades don't really justify the price point. So the two cons kind of tie in together there, but I feel like the improvements in the body, although they're great, I feel like it's not really pushing things into a whole new realm of photography. So again, it's kind of hard to justify that huge price tag when it's not adding that much to the workflow. So who is this camera for? Well, it all depends on the photography you like to do, if you like to use a tripod, and your bank account, to be honest. If you have a handheld workflow like I do, I'll definitely recommend this camera or similar models like the Canon R5, which has pretty much the same type of stabilization. It's going to allow you to shoot handheld and not really need the tripod unless it's astrophotography. If you like using a tripod for your photography, I personally could not justify buying this camera. I feel like the image quality in the previous models is pretty much the same, really. If you're on the tripod, you're not going to be taking advantage of the stabilization, and you're really not going to be taking too much advantage of the ISO performance, because on a tripod, you're not really stuck with having ISO issues. You can just do a slow shutter and keep the ISO low at all times. The focus stacking feature, yeah, that's nice, but again, on the tripod, it's pretty easy just to manually do that anyway. The tilt screen, yeah, that's nice. Is that really that big of an improvement? Or the menu? If I was a tripod shooter, I'd be looking at probably the A7R5, because that is a good balance of ISO performance, but still maintaining the high resolution. So long story short, this camera for me works really well because of the things I've mentioned. If you're on the tripod, I'll definitely save a few bucks, look at some of the older models, and then you can spend more of that money on getting some good glass. All right, guys, hope that's given you a little bit of food for thought. I didn't want to ramble on about too much, so if you have any specific questions about the camera, leave it in the comments. As always, thank you so much for viewing the video, and I hope to see you in the next one.